If you've ever wondered how you go from 0 to 63 locations, if you've ever wondered how you transform a business from a founder's kind of first gen dynamic leader to a strategic, thoughtful integrator type of leadership, if you've ever thought about how people affect business outcomes more than technology, and then how technology might be the answer, but only if good people are in place. And I think you're going to like this one because talking to Jackson Rollo from Rollo Insurance really opens up a couple of themes. One, culture is the advantage. And we keep hearing that as a reoccurring theme on podcasts, but to go from 0 to 63 locations takes an ability to not only stamp out a good culture, but replicate it. And how you do that, this podcast, listen for a couple of things. Listen how tech is not the primary solution, it's the secondary solution. Listen to how hiring one good person at a time is how you actually scale 100-person operation. And listen to excellence as the advantage, relationship as advantage, and technology supporting it as a way that you can do it. Whether you're a small agency, a large agency, or if you're a top 100, Jackson and the team at Rollo Insurance have a story to tell. And I think you'll enjoy this one. I know I did. And if I enjoyed it, chances are you will too. Jackson, thanks for taking time again to share a little bit about the journey that you guys have been on as an organization and more importantly, where you're going. So appreciate it.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it. It's always fun to get a chance to talk.
Yeah, and I think I, I love your story. And when we first spoke, I love your story because there's a lot of generational agencies in the industry, but very few break orbital or gravitational pull and hit orbit with size and scale and those type of things. And so I think it's an interesting story to talk about the scale that you guys have achieved and kind of what your generation is doing and how you're thinking about the future. So I think it's an interesting perspective that you particularly bring to the table.
Yeah, I love being second generation. I think early on, everybody they think, hey, what if, what if I was the first generation? But I will tell people I've always loved being second generation, the blessings that come with it. And I think a lot of times it can either be what makes you a little too comfortable to just, stay the course, or it can be the thing that gives you the advantage to scale and to grow beyond what other people can do because you have a foundation, right? You have foundation, you have knowledge, you have wisdom a lot of times, because people have seen the right way and wrong way to do things.
Yeah, and I think there's this endless debate, which I killed years ago between Scratch and Next Gen. And I think they are both equally challenging and they have both equal opportunity too. So I really would like to dispel that. And I think your story kind of helps do that. So talk a little bit about that first generation. So when we first spoke, you spoke about your father as kind of the visionary founder, and then kind of when you came in, finding your place in the
Yeah, so our agency, my dad started it 26 years ago. It's a really cool story. He actually started it for a bank, was a minor partner there, bought them out same week, bought another agency. So he went from running one to owning two in like a couple weeks. And I mean that just defines him, right? The truest sense of the word entrepreneur. He's Energizer Bunny. He is he's very, people they love working with. And he just has a vision. I mean, he sees things before most other people do, and it's been incredible to come in and work with him and to see that, firsthand. I will tell you, there's a lot of times where, younger Jackson would say, "No, you're wrong on that," and then 6 weeks later, he was right, man. He's always right. So now I've learned, okay, don't argue with him. Just figure out what in the world he's talking about. Because sometimes he's talking about 3 years down the line, and you're arguing because you're sitting right here today. Um, but yeah, no, he built a really good agency over the course of 25 years. He has a great team that I came in and they adopted me whenever I came in. And to your point, I think they're both challenging. But the thing I love about it, and I think the thing that makes us a bit unique is we don't look at it as, the first 25 years was him, the next 25 years is me. I mean, my little brother's in the business. A lot of family is in the business with us. So it's one of those things where we had to find our roles, but once we do, we complement each other and we work together, right? It's the first 25 years he was building the foundation, and hopefully the next 25 years we are building this thing together. And I think looking at it in that way is a bit of a superpower.
I love that. So it sounds like everyone's found their role. How do you place yourself in the business these days? How would you think of yourself?
Yeah, we operate on the EOS system, our own version of it. But my dad is the visionary. I'm the integrator. I have a little visionary tendencies as well from time to time. So I got
And
our
then, but yeah,
COO.
a threat here.
Yeah, our COO, he plays integrator for me, right? So we got this like little stair stepper thing going. But no, we have a great relationship. We look at the here and now. We have a 10-year plan. We work it, and so my role mainly is to be that integrator, right? To work through the 10-year vision and then to make the things practical today, but also to be working 6 months, 12 months, 24 months into the future to make sure we're hitting the stride we need to get to where we want to go in 10 years. And so, my role is everything from sales and marketing, which is in my background, and I love it, all the way to operations and finance. And I think it maybe is the visionary part of me. I love being involved in every part of the business. And the reality is we have an awesome team of people who are around us who've been here for a long time. We're actually celebrating 20 years today for the longest tenured employee here, not last name Rollo. So my mom and dad were the first two, and then Kristen's our third. And so it's awesome to just see people who've grown up and we built this thing together. And I love working with them.
Yeah, and I think if you're listening to this driving in the car or whatever, you might think traditionally of just a small family agency. But talk a little bit about Rollo Insurance today and what you guys
Yeah.
cover to do.
Yeah, so like I said, my dad started it 26 years ago. It was just him. He was the agent, the account manager, the janitor. He was everything. Now today, sitting here, we are 63 offices across the country, 8 states. We have 260 teammates on the team, and it's a blessing to be able to grow and to work with people who love doing what they're doing. They love pushing themselves and challenging themselves. And so yeah, we've been able to scale. A lot of that happened since COVID in 2020. We just decided, hey, you know what, we want to grow, we want to build something special, and I think we have the opportunity and the ability to do that. And that's what we've been doing, just one good person at a time. That's our approach. People always ask, "Man, how many offices do you want to have? How big do you want the team to be? How many states?" And the answer is always the same: one good person at a time. And that good person, what we mean by that is they got to be a cultural fit, right? Beliefs, values, and standards. They gotta be able to perform to a certain level to be a part of this team. We want to I tell people all the time, we can't be a great agency with average performers. So everybody's got to be great each and every day if we want to be great as an agency as a whole. And then having the right beliefs and the right character, and working and enjoying working with each other too, because we work really, really hard, and so we spend a lot of time up here, and we got to enjoy working with the team that we have.
Yeah, I like that perspective. You talked about people, you talked about culture. I think there's this especially with where we're at in the stream of insurance history and time, and with next gens taking over, we've seemed to fetishize technology as the solution, like it's coming to save us or kill us or whatever on that. I've seen enough of those cycles to know it's not true. And so you seem to think, and we'll talk more about tech and how you view it, but it sounds like you're starting as a philosophy with culture and people.
Yeah, I think it has to, right? When you think of look, we've bought a lot of agencies over the years. Even in the 7 years I've been here, I mean, we've done 20 plus acquisitions, right? We've done a lot. So you sometimes get an agency that's very paper heavy. They still have filing cabinets, right? And when you look at that, you say, okay, well, yes, we got to get some computers in here, right? We got to digitize this thing, got to get rid of the paper. But the reality is you have to have the people to do that. And just like moving from paper to an AMS system and everything digital, it's the same when you move from AMS to the world of AI that we're going to, and the speed at which things move. You still need the people to be the facilitator of that. And most of our job, right? The fun part of our job is dealing with people each and every day with the clients that we serve. And so, people are just such an essential part of that. And so we spend a lot of time and effort on the way we think, the way we act, the way we operate, what makes us different and unique. And I do think that that's been one of the things that's allowed us to combat the changes, right? So I came in, I started as an agent in 2019 as an intern actually at A&M. So I started at the agency, kind of part time in college. Started in the agent side, and then very quickly I took over as the director of sales actually in January of 2020. Well, we all know what happened in March of 2020, right?
Yeah,
And so
that was a pretty pivotal time in human
it
history.
was it was my first 6 months out of being out of school, had no experience with the business world. And I mean, I think back then, like we barely did webinars. And now it's like all we do basically. And so when you think about it, like what allows a business to pivot over and over and over again with the constantly evolving and changing landscape we live in. And it's you got to have people who understand who they are, what their value is, and then what they're trying to accomplish, right? If we're trying to accomplish a very efficient business that does things excellent, okay, well, we have to have a mindset towards change. And so that was probably the biggest thing that we did early on was we said, hey, look, change is going to be a constant here. So we got to get used to it. Everybody has to be okay with it. And we try to balance it, but it's a part of who we are. I mean, there's new things coming out every day. We have to understand them because if we don't, somebody else is going to.
Yeah, I think that boy, you can't overstate how important that is as a culture because that's the reality. Change is a constant now. But if you don't manage or train those muscles, then the first time someone says, hey, Jackson just said we're going to go run a marathon. Well, what the heck? I'm not conditioned for that. And so I think having a culture or a philosophy of people that accept and embrace that means when the gun goes off, the team's ready to go. Right.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a quote that I heard a couple years ago, and we use it all the time, which is the rate of learning has to exceed the rate of change, or else you'll fall behind. And so, a lot of times it's well, hey, I don't know how to do this. Perfect. Neither did I the first time, right? It's something you learn. And I actually have a post on LinkedIn about that. My 4 year old, when she was 2, she could walk up and say, "Hey Alexa, play this song," right? It's
Ah,
a 2 year old. She knows how.
yeah.
Well, she has no more ability to learn that than somebody who maybe feels like they've grown up outside of the world of technology. The difference is my daughter's 2 years old. She was learning everything. And because she's in that state of learning everything, she figured out how Alexa worked. And so that's what I always remind everybody is you can learn this, right? Technology is a learned behavior, which is the beautiful thing about it. You just have to have the excitement and the energy to try, and you're going to learn a lot more than you think you will.
Yeah, and I suppose that same culture internally then probably reflects in how they build relationships with customers and clientele, right?
Absolutely. It's the same thing. I mean, we're in the business of being independent means we have options, which sounds like awesome until you realize how many options you have and it's your job and responsibility to pick the right one and to give the correct options to the client and that all depends on who they are and what they own and how they operate and the funds they have. So, we have to get to know our clients just like we have to get to know our options. I mean, learning is a constant thing in this business. Being independent, you have to know your markets, you have to know your clients. We actually have we call them the Rollo rules. They're our core values. But rule number 11 is it's the word no to the third power, right? So everybody says knowledge is power, and we've extrapolated that out to the third power. So you got to know your client, you got to know your value, and you got to know your product. And if you know those three things, you have the ability to serve them in the proper way. Well, knowing your value could be technology. It could be, the way you present yourself. It could be the philosophy in which we approach business. But you have to know those three things, and it all starts by knowing the client so we can serve them.
Yeah, and so that brings us to probably I agree with that, by the way. That's awesome. But then you get to the point where we're at now as an industry where I don't think there's enough humans that are coming in this business. And at the rate you guys are scaling, how do you hire and train people to do it in a world that is increasingly saying there's other and better options out there? And so as the integrator, someone thinking about the future, you've got this awesome foundation that you and your family have built. It's got a 25 to 50-year run rate on it. So it needs to adapt and change. And there's no denying, no matter how much relationship and culture and people matter, if they don't have the time to focus on no to the third power, well, then that in essence just negates the value of it. And so I guess, as you think about your role in the agency today, and as you think about technology and innovation supporting that and enabling more, what are some of the kind of efficiency plays that you're focused on or have tried or see succeeding in your agency that other agents might be able to think about and say, like, hey, that's something that had value for Jackson and the team. Maybe I should think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the one that's right there in front of everybody's face, but it's I mean, removing data entry, right? I mean, how many times I know whenever I first started, we did the technology wave was kind of just hitting insurance. And so I mean, I would know someone's social security number by the time I got done quoting them because
Yeah.
I had put it in 4 systems and I wrote it down twice. And so it's one of those things where if we can just go from doing it something 6 times to doing it once. I mean, we did this on the personal line side with our data entry, right? Everything goes now to the where it needs to go. It goes to Rater, it goes to the CRM, goes to the AMS all at the same time. Some automations that we created. So we timed it, right? It used to take agents around an hour front to back, and this is in the middle of the hard market when you do have to go through multiple company options to really find a good option for the client. Around an hour to get a quote back. So I think so right now we're down to like 15 minutes. And so when you think about that, I did the math. That is the equivalent to doubling my sales force when you think about it, right? When you run the amount of hours that they spend in the day quoting and getting leads, and now we have basically given them back 45 minutes per opportunity they work. And I will say this too: we are very picky about the documentation in the file, and so some people might say, 15 minutes, that's long compared to us." Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff you have to do business the right way, right? To do it intentionally excellent, as we like to say. And so that amount of speed that we've gained without losing any of the quality of what we're doing, it essentially doubled the sales force overnight, and the numbers showed that.
I love that because I mean, I talk to thousands of agents a year, and you're one of the only people. I've built my whole practice on cycle times, which is to say, hey, something happens at repetition. How many times does it happen? How long does it take? How much does it cost? And is it worthy of investment? And I think there's the first takeaway for anyone listening is understand what your people are doing, understand how long it takes, the impact on the customer, the people, and also the cost to the business. I mean, 75% increase of time on new business quoting is going to increase the likelihood to close it, and it's going to reduce the cost of processing all that. So that's for a growth organization. That's a huge value. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that you do a lot of work around this, right? So,
Yeah. That's my whole
where
life.
have you where do you find that the like if you were starting over tomorrow, where would you start? If you were taking over an agency, and you're trying to make it more efficient, where would you start?
Yeah, well, I mapped out the independent process, and there's only 30 things that happen at scale. Five of them are on sales, so you should break out those five because they have unique solutions and challenges. 18 of them happen at scale within your service ops. There's only 18 things that an account manager does, and so if you can understand what those 18 things are, which ones has a Rollo advantage, the node of the third power advantage. Let's get our people there, and then let's automate, reduce cost, and reduce cycle times on the ones that nobody cares about, and then there's these precious seven or eight things called tasks, which are absolutely killing us as agencies. And it's really because carriers and agents have never agreed that us following up as humans on underwriters, on claims adjusters, on issued as asked, those type of things, that's just needless calories burned inside of an organization emotionally and needless calories burned from a financial standpoint for an organization. So I think tackling those things uniquely to your niche, to your geography, into your agency culture is where you should start. They're all rich with opportunity. And you just gave a great example of new business quoting. It's like, hey, there's five types of new business. I'm going to take one and knock 75% of the time off. That's a win.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Talk to me about then the customer side of it. So let's just keep pulling that thread. We talked about proposals. We talked about smart routing. So the customer obviously historically, independent agents have had a legacy reputation of being hard to deal with. How are you thinking about taking that efficiency internally and helping a better customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think when our philosophy within our technology department is pretty simple. It's we need to speed up the process at which our team is able to do the monotonous computer-based tasks, right, that you were just mentioning, and we need to allow them to reuse those hours in the day to create a better client experience. Because to your point, right, somebody with 50 things on their desk and then they get another call, like they're probably going to let that call go to voicemail because I got to finish this quote because the way my brain works, if I take that call, there's no way I get this done. And now the rest of my day's ruined. Well, that's not a great client experience because all that client sees is I made a phone call, no one answered. And so, how do we optimize the amount of hours in a day that our team is able to spend on the phone, in person meetings, talking to people? And it's 5 minutes here and it's 10 minutes there. It's not, there's nowhere you're going to go and say 4 hours. We just took 4 hours away. No, you took 4 hours divided by 50 away, right? That's how this thing works. And so you have to find those little opportunities. Like you said, if it's, hey, a sales proposal takes 20 minutes and now it takes 10. Well, what are you doing with those other 10 minutes, right? You should be creating a better client experience or be talking about that client experience to prospects so we get more clients. And so I think it's finding ways to speed up the necessary part of our job, but it's not necessarily needing to be done by us, right? Technology can do things faster at scale more consistently than we can a lot of times. But what it cannot do is it cannot build relationships the way that we can. And that's what we need to be doing every single day is building relationships. And so, it's funny as I think this whole AI thing to your point earlier, it swings back and forth like everything technology has. Hey, this is going to fix all the problems. No, it's going to create all the problems. And it's just back and forth. We try to stay right in the middle, knowing that is AI going to have an impact on our business? Absolutely. Is it going to make us where we have zero people, teammates? The answer is no. And to be honest with you, even if it could, I'm not sure we would do it because the reality is the people we work with, I enjoy working with them. They're my friends. We have fun building something together. It's not a whole lot of fun building anything by yourself.
Yeah, and I think a couple more takeaways there as you were talking that should be apparent to people. I talk to a lot of agents, especially smaller ones that are trying to get to the next level, and they're focused on process elimination. What you talked about there was process improvement is how you get to process elimination. And so I can't tell you how many times we talk to people that say, "Hey, listen, I either have a dozen donuts or not." It's like, well, how about 11 donuts, man? So as we make these incremental gains, as we improve things, then that's how you realistically get to process elimination is by making those incremental gains and being happy with that.
You know what? I have a story to tell on that. So when we rolled this new business, automation thing out that we built, um, we had about 50-50 adoption on it. And it was funny. I was at a meeting as in person, everybody's there. I was like, okay, I got to make a point today, right? We got to get people to buy in on this thing. And so I said, okay, raise your hand real quick if you're not using it. About half the hands went up. I said, okay, somebody tell me why you're not using it. Man, I don't have time to figure it out. "Oh, okay, cool, perfect. All right, if you are using it, raise your hand. The other half of the room. Well, why are you using it? Because it saves me so much time. So that's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Half the people are using it because it saves time. Half the people aren't using it because they don't have time. And so what I did was I explained to them, I think it was a misunderstanding of the word automation. What I explained to everybody is automation does not inherently mean it goes from 100% of the work to zero. What it means is it went from 100% of the work to 25% of the work, right? And so you still have to do 25%, but if you're looking at it upset, you're having to do 25%. How about we be glass half full people and say, I don't have to do 75% anymore. This is awesome. And I think that was the dilemma there. And the cool thing is I think it opened everyone's eyes to, you know what? I do need to invest a little extra time right now because it's going to save me time later. And to your point, the way you get to process elimination is you got to start by going from 100 to 80, from 80 to 60 down. And the next thing you know, you get there at some point. But there's an important part of keeping the human in the loop as well.
Yeah, and we've watched on our platform now close to 50 million transactions done by account managers and producers, and it's so clear 65% of a person's day is spent processing. So to your point, if we can get that down to 60 and 50 and 30 and 20, well, then that gives time back to the humans to focus on the node of the third power, the relationship, the expertise, and the value that people are coming for. And so the realistic march of nines to get to that is not going to be an overnight. You're not going to go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's going to happen by adopting things and improving things as you go. I
Yeah,
think the other thing you talked
absolutely.
about too, which is crazy, is I think too many agents are thinking of AI as a replacement for relationship, and I just think it's the wrong place to start with AI. I mean, relationship is what you and your father and your family have built with the community and with the people that you've bought and the team. That's the last place I'm starting with AI. I want to start with who cares who changes a red Chevy to a blue Chevy, right? I mean, that's where we have to get our mind straight, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think again, at some point, I think we have to think as a society like, okay, cool. AI does all the jobs.
Right.
What do we do? Like,
Yeah.
no offense, I'm 28
What
years
does an
old.
insurance agent do? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 28 years old. I'm not ready to retire. Like
Right.
I'm excited every day when I get to wake up and come to the office. I'm excited whenever I get to solve problems and talk to people and build relationships. And so I think the reality is we have to ask ourselves like a world where AI does everything is probably not a world any of us want to live in. So the reality is, to your point, we have to think about it from the perspective of what does no one care about? Let's use the technology to do that. What do people care about? Well, they care when you know their favorite sports team and you can talk with them about it, right? They care when you know their hobbies, we know their families. And the reality is they hope you care when claim time comes and they hope you cared enough to get to know them on the front end to give them advice that they don't know inherently on their own. And so I think to your point, AI, using it to replace people is the wrong way of looking at this. I think it should enhance people and it should enhance the best part of this business. I mean, whenever I came to the business, the thing I always love about it is we always say we're trying to do new age things in an old school way. Like I want to keep the business where you come in and drink a cup of coffee and you talk about your insurance policy because I think at the end of the day, this is a very important product we sell. And unlike a lot of other things, people don't know how important it is until the moment they need it. So it is our job to invoke emotion and to invoke knowledge of the product they're buying on the front end, because there's going to be a moment in their life when they need it. And it's going to be a yes, no question at that point. They either have it or they don't. And a lot of that is going to come down to how good the person was talking with them on the front side.
Yeah, and I think, I'll never forget, we were onboarding on Service Center. We were onboarding, an account manager, somewhere down south. I can't remember, but man, she sounded awesome. And she said, "Hey, this is creating so much time. What am I going to do all day?" And I said, "Well, what would you do if you had the time?" And she's like, "Well, I know if I talk to my customers about their grandbabies, they always come back." And I'm like, talk to your customers about their grandbabies. That
Absolutely.
is that is retention right there. And so, if we can give the time for people to do what matters to the customer, whatever that may be, we win as independent agents, and
I
that's our
agree.
value prop. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
then so then tell me about so, like, listen, I didn't grow up in the Rollo household, but it feels like it's full gas all the time knowing you. So, like, but I can imagine, 260 other people didn't grow up with their foot on the gas and their hair on fire all the time. So you put, ordinary, average, people into this culture, into this kind of pace of doing it and way of doing things. How do you manage the emotional, health of everybody? Because
Yeah.
these are muscles people are often probably joining the team by choice or through acquisition or whatever, who may not be acclimated to this line of thinking. What's your job as an integrator from a emotional health standpoint?
Yeah. Um, when you think about it, I was actually listening to I love college football, and it's funny because whether it's watching movies, watching sports, probably the best business event of the year I attend is an event here at A&M where I get to hear the coaches and the athletic directors speak. But they speak in that you understand they're running a business. It just happens to be a football team,
Football
right?
team, right?
And the thing they always have to talk about, because to your point, especially in this new era of college football, players can leave whenever they want. They are sticking around because of culture. That's why they're sticking around, because they're building something together. And so I was listening to a podcast and they're talking about the difference between like the top programs in the country, Ohio State's, I believe they talked about Oregon. And one of the things the guy said as he was breaking this down is the way they work in those programs. If you took an average person and you put them in that environment, they're going to look around and say, this is unsustainable. Like we cannot keep up this type of work every single day. And he said, and the difference is the person who's in that locker room every day looks around and says, dude, this is a normal Tuesday. You
Yeah.
might not can keep up, but we can. And so I think to your point, we just stress early on like the culture of how we're going to operate. I mean, we have a purpose as a company, right? And it's to build family legacy through intentional excellence. So when you think about those last three words, through intentional excellence, that means instead of it being good by chance, is great by choice. We do things intentionally. We do them 100% all of the time. And to your point, we just help people. We help them build their muscle, if you will, towards working this way. And so to your point earlier, I think the reality is we have a lot of people who are not average. They choose to be here. They choose to buy into the culture. They choose to take on that purpose and that attitude and that identity. Because when you think about culture, that's what it is. It's the shared beliefs, values, and standards. And shared by who? Shared by the company and the individual who chooses to be there. And so the reality is we're looking for people who want to be unique. They want to be different. And at the same time, they understand their priorities in life and they understand there's way more important things in life than work. But if we can agree on that on the front end, when people get here, what they realize is I can be really, really good at my job and it doesn't have to take away from my family or my spirituality or the country in which I live and my desire to serve. And so it makes people just energized and I'm not saying we don't have tough days. Everybody has tough days. But there's a difference in having tough days and looking at something that's great and saying, I don't have what it takes to do that. The reality is everybody has what it takes. Um, People just differ in their desire to commit to it.
I what I love about this conversation. Well, first off, I would play for your team. Like you'd be a heck of a coach. So like, I don't know. I that A&M event has got you fired up, bro. Like
It does,
I'm in the
man. I love
portal
it.
right now, man. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. We got some good coaches at A&M too right now, and I think they take that approach. And I think when you look at great business owners, it's an attitude they take towards like I wake up every day and I want to build something great. And I think there's a lot of other people in the world who want to do that as well. And if we want to do it individually, why not do it together? We can go a lot farther that way.
Yeah, and you perfectly summarize and exemplify what I have found to be true as well. That it always starts with people. If you give people a killer process, they're going to go do it. And if you give them supportive technology, then it all wins. And who wins in that? I think the customer wins because they feel it. The people win because they're dignified with meaningful work. And oh, by the way, you make more money that way too because you have meaning. And then all of that drops to the business results, the net cash, the growth, and all those things. And I think we've become over obsessed with the wrong things. And I think you very clearly highlighted the prioritization, the value, and how that benefits the customer, the people in the organization, and the business. And I don't think you could end on a better spot than that. So I appreciate it. Let's leave it there. Okay.
Let's do it, man. Thank you very much, Seth. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.